Yo, guys, we are back. Welcome to the Postgame show. We just got done wrapping up the action movie draft, and today this is the Postgame show. We are going to grade every single team here. We have pretty much everybody in attendance, and we're going to just lead off right with Sean. Sean, tell us about your team, man.
Like I said, you can't go action movie, especially if you get the top pick, unless you think more past the explosions and the fight scenes and the attitude. You have to think of something that really defined the genre. And if you think about the technology in T2, James Cameron came with stuff that nobody had ever seen before. That's why it was a toss-up between that and The Matrix for me. I've written about how The Matrix defined action, but T2 did also. So I had to start there. And then the fact that Die Hard slipped down to me, I was just, thank you about that. And then I don't know who said it, but I wasn't thinking about picking a CBM. But when you think about Captain America, the Winter Soldier, the plot created action, the dialogue created action, then the scene created action. You just had to have it. So I was real happy about that. True Lies is bananas. That is a stop down for me any day of the week. So is The Bourne Identity. And lastly, I had to go off the board for Bad Boys. I think that first one is the best one of all three. I like my team. So what's up?
How would you rate it out of 10?
I dig my team. I don't want to have hubris with it, but I'll give it a 8.5.
I think I'm right there with you, buddy. I think you have the top three. Your first three picks are probably arguably the best of this draft. The Winter Soldier, I'm really upset you took it. That was a movie I was hoping would fall. True Lies is amazing. Bourne Identity is amazing. Bad Boys, I actually really, really love.
Yeah.
Mike Lowry. But
Larry.
I'll go 8.5. Austin.
I will go. I would say Terminator 2 is definitely something that's bringing that list up, along with True Lies. I will give it an 8.
Jason.
I like it. I've seen almost all of these movies. I'll also go 8, which is pretty darn high for me. I'm a tough grader.
I'll take that.
Very good.
All right. Nicole.
So I'm also going to go 8 because Terminator is awesome. Captain America Winter Soldier is one of my favorite Marvel movies. And Bourne Identity is just fantastic. And Bad Boys, you got to go Bad Boys, so I'll go 8.
8. Ryan.
Thank you.
Great list. It's a list of a mix between classics and movies right now that kind of like, especially The Winter Soldier is one of my favorite. I'm going to go 8.3.
8.3. That means
by the way, can I interject really quick?
Yeah.
A ton of fireworks just went off. I'm guessing Joe Biden just gave a speech.
Yeah.
Yes. He did.
Yeah, well, okay. I was wondering what was going on here. I'm like 3 miles from there. And I'm thinking, like, what is happening? It's November. Why are there fireworks? But yeah, apparently there's quite a display.
Fireworks are going off here too, so I'm nowhere near there.
I thought a raccoon had like gotten into my trash can. That's what was happening.
I think what it was actually the perfect storm getting approved. That's what it was. Fireworks.
Nice.
It was no fish can fit 3 barrels.
Yeah. All right, Gabe, how would you grade this team out of 10?
If I had to grade it on the first 4, I would have given you an 11 out of 10 because the first 4 are fantastic movies. You have 2 Cameron movies, amazing. But then you picked the two weakest entries in their own trilogies. Doesn't mean they're bad movies, but they're the weakest in their own trilogies. I'm thinking of Bourne movies as a trilogy because the other two, that came after, whatever. But so to that, I'll give you a 7.5.
All right, Larry.
Sorry, I am muting myself because there are fireworks going on out here too, so it's a little bit wild out there.
You guys neighbor?
Yeah. So T2 was my number one. If magically it could fall to number 6, would be jump on it immediately. Die Hard, Captain America, Winter Soldier, True Lies. Yeah, I think this is a really solid list. I don't love Bad Boys. So ultimately I think I'd go with an 8, like many others have.
Thank you, Larry.
All right. Gabe, explain your team, man.
Well, I mean, I echoing again on what Sean said. I think if Sean had picked The Matrix, as I was anticipating, I would have picked T2. I think those are probably the strongest action movies of the 90s, if not of the last 30 years. Two of the strongest. So that's why I got The Matrix. Like, there was no way I could live without, having The Matrix there. And then The Rock, everybody loves it, and it's really special for me. The Raid 2, like I said, it's influenced so much, and it's like, brutal movie, amazing. And if you haven't seen it, because it's not in it's not in English, and some people are not really attracted to reading subtitles, but it doesn't really matter. It's all action and it's really good. Demolition Man, I think that one might take some votes. I don't know if everybody has seen it or everybody loves it as much as I do. And the other two also personal to me, but Starship Troopers, I mean, if you've seen it, you gotta love it. I think it was great back then, probably somewhat misunderstood. It's great now. And GoldenEye, like I said, it's probably one of the best Bond movies. And I've seen them all, and I like many of them, but I think GoldenEye stands out. Many of us think about the video game first, which is great because the video game's amazing, but we shouldn't forget that the movie's also really, really good. Like Funke Johnson, goes crazy in that movie. Sean Bean is the bad guy, and you got a great Sean Bean death, right? So I mean, I'll give it a 9.5 out of 10 because I'm very modest.
I mean, this is a list that speaks to my heart. The Matrix, The Rock, Starship Troopers, GoldenEye. All 4 of those are really, really some of my all-time favorites. I've never seen The Raid 2, unfortunately. And Demolition Man is one of those cult classic films that you might get some votes for. It's good, but I thought it was maybe a little bit of a reach. I'll give you a solid 8.5. What about you all?
I will give it. See, my issue here is that I've only seen 2.5 of these movies. I will give it a 7 because GoldenEye is a kick-ass movie 100% of the time. That credentializes you, in my opinion. So I will give you a 7.
Jason.
The Matrix, obviously, seminal. The Rock is a good movie. I really didn't like Starship Troopers. I'm sorry, just not a fan of it. Demolition Man, I think is a really good movie. I think it was a great pick. So I'll give this a 6.
All right, let's roll on to Nicole.
All right, so Matrix is one of the best ones. The Rock is, of course, absolutely fantastic. I've never seen The Raid 2 and Demolition Man. And Starship Troopers, I was hoping that was going to fall to me. And then GoldenEye, I've never seen that either, so I'm going to go with
Ryan.
a 7.
Top 3 are fantastic. Demolition Man, has been too long since I've seen it. Starship Troopers, it's kind of a cult movie to me. I don't really know. I haven't watched it in forever. I think you started out, or you ended it strong with GoldenEye. I'd go 7.5.
All right, Sean.
I think The Raid 2 is kind of like Ryan's Train to Busan in the horror draft.
Interesting.
That was just picked out of nowhere. And by the way, word of the day is silat. It's Pencak Silat. That's the Indonesian martial art. So for those of you scoring at home, it's an amazing movie. I love it. I just don't think a lot of people will vote for it because maybe they haven't seen it. That's why I didn't pick Hero or Ip Man. I really wanted to, but The Matrix is amazing. The Rock, I've seen it 1,000 times. Demolition Man, underrated as hell. GoldenEye, I love it. Starship, I can't believe that was picked. That's a strong 8.5 for me.
Nice. Larry.
Yeah, I was really scared. I was good with either of the first two Raid films. So when it came out of his mouth, I think I was like, "Oh my god, no!" But that's an amazing movie and one of the best like pure action films ever to me. The Matrix, obviously super influential, and I just have a love for Starship Troopers being a 90s baby. Maybe that has something to do with it. The Rock I don't love as much as other people do. Demolition Man I've actually never seen, and GoldenEye I also don't think I love quite as much as everybody else in this room. But I think I'm still going to go with a 7.
All right, JR.
Okay, I didn't rate Sean's list, but just quickly, I'm giving Sean a 9.
Thank you.
And for Gabe, I've only seen The Matrix, The Rock, Starship Troopers, and GoldenEye. Haven't seen the other two. I'll give you an 8.
All right, let's go on to Jason's squad. Review your squad, dude.
All right, so as you might know, I always go for diversity, try to spread it out. What I didn't get on this list was anything with major explosions. But Enter the Dragon, obviously, for me was really important. Point Break, I think, is just an amazing movie. Fifth Element, again, underrated sort of sci-fi action movie. Kill Bill, I'm just a Tarantino fan, so anytime I can get that kind of dialogue and that sort of it's every one of his movies is a love letter to the art of film, and so that was important for me. And then Alien, we talked about it being questionable, but it's a great film that I think in many ways really influenced a lot of the films that have come after it. Besides just creating a franchise, I think it just was hugely influential. So I like my diversity. I think I've covered a lot of bases. I didn't cover all of the bases, but Point Break for me is the key because I think it gives me the chase scene, and it gives me some fight scenes that just haven't really existed anywhere else, like skydiving fight scenes and things like that.
All right. Yeah, Kill Bill Volume 2 is terrific. I don't think it's better than Kill Bill Volume 1, but I think that was on the other list. The Fifth Element is a stone cold, one of my favorite movies of all time. Instant classic. Return of the Jedi. Who doesn't love Return of the Jedi? Enter the Dragon is probably pound for pound the biggest, most value pick here in this entire draft. I can't believe I fell that far. That might win you another one, Jason. We'll see. Alien is obviously a timeless classic. Is it action? Is it sci-fi horror? Who cares? It is just terrific.
It's great.
It's great. And then Point Break is great. I'll give you an 8.5. Austin.
I have seen a total of, I guess you could say, 1.5 of the movies. And for Point Break, I think I've seen all Point Break, so that counts. I will give that list, let's see. How can I be fair? I'll say a
5. It's fair. You haven't seen any of them.
You can also not give them a grade if you don't feel comfortable.
Okay, I'll do that. I know, incomplete for me. I have no grade.
All right. Nicole.
Sorry. Okay, so I actually don't like the Kill Bill movies. Like, I'm not a big fan of them. And the Fifth Element is awesome. Return of the Jedi is one of the best Star Wars. Alien and Point Break are great. I've never seen Enter the Dragon, but I've heard good things about it. So I'm going to give it an 8.
All right. Ryan.
For me, I think he really crushed the end of his draft. I think Point Break, Alien, Enter the Dragon, really solidified a lot of it. I thought maybe there were better choices in the first round, but that's his list. I'll have to go 7.
Gabe.
I'm sorry, Jason. I just don't like this list at all. I mean, Kill Bill Volume 2 is the weakest of the two. It barely has any action in it. Fifth Element's amazing. I love that one. Return of the Jedi is one of my least favorite Star Wars movies. It's a comedy. Like, it's just weird. The third act works emotionally, but the rest of the movie is just like all over the place. So I don't love Return of the Jedi. Enter the Dragon I haven't seen, so I can't give an opinion on that one. Alien is not action, and it does matter because it's an action draft. And Point Break is great. So I really like 2 of your movies, but the rest, either I can't give an opinion or I really think they're not supposed to be there for one way or the other. So I would give it a 5.
So that was
Kill
a Simon. That was a Simon Cowell grades right there.
Sorry.
Austin, meet Gabe. Austin, Gabe, meet Austin.
Okay.
Is it my turn?
Yeah, sorry. You're up.
Oh, no, my bad. Kill Bill Volume 2, I couldn't stand it. The first one I loved. The Fifth Element, GOAT. I love that movie so much. Return of the Jedi was fantastic. Alien, one of the ones we voted on. I dig it. Point Break, I think, is amazing. So out of those, I would have given you an 8. But then you picked Enter the Dragon and took that from me, a guy who studied Bruce Lee for half his life. So I'm going to give you a negative 6,000.
That's fair.
Love it.
That sounds fair to me.
Larry, you're up.
Yeah, I'm a bit mixed as well. I also don't love the Kill Bill films as much as I know so many do. I do, however, adore The Fifth Element. Return of the Jedi is also one of my least favorite Star Wars films. I haven't seen Enter the Dragon. Point Break is a lot of fun. And then I was that deciding vote to put Alien in here. So I guess Ripley is still an action icon. So I'm going to go with a 6.5.
You all have to watch Enter the Dragon.
Yeah.
It's compulsory.
No one brought that up. That Ripley is like. No
big
one brought
word.
it up that Ripley is like one of the most badass characters in film history. No one brought that up when we were debating that. And that is she an action star? Absolutely. So
Yeah.
Let's go to JR.
Jason, this is a 10 out of 10 list for me.
Finally, somebody gets me.
I prefer Kill Bill Volume 1, but Volume 2 is just as good. The Fifth Element is Luc Besson's best movie, in my opinion. Even though it took me years, I do appreciate Return of the Jedi. I love Enter the Dragon. Alien is my second favorite Ridley Scott movie, and Point Break is my second favorite Catherine Bigelow movie. So this is a 10 out of 10 list.
Damn. All right. Love it.
Now there's an expert.
Speaking of Bigelow, I'm surprised Mrs. Crockpot didn't pick The Hurt Locker.
I was thinking about that.
Yeah. Speaking of expert drinking wine in a Spider-Man costume, you're up.
I would like to point out that this is actually water.
Yeah, whatever. Whatever.
I also would like to point out that I didn't get to explain my picks for the horror draft.
Oh, really?
Everyone immediately went into judging it. I didn't get to explain my picks and why. So it's all Ryan's fault, by the way.
As long as it's not my fault.
No, it wasn't. So my list, it's kind of like the horror one, only I think this is going to get me a few more votes than the last one. Every single one of these movies means something to me personally. Like, for example, Spider-Man 2, The Last Crusade, and The Force Awakens are all in my top 10 favorite films of all time. Spider-Man 2 is my second under The Empire Strikes Back. It's also my favorite comic book movie. The Last Crusade is my favorite film by Steven Spielberg. I'm not a Trekkie, but J.J. Abrams' Star Trek movie is what piqued my interest in Star Trek. This one's is not gonna get me a lot of votes, but I love the first 3 Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I also think it has Hans Zimmer's best score to date, at least not for a Christopher Nolan film. The Force Awakens was my favorite film of the 2010s and my favorite film by J.J. Abrams. And like I mentioned in the last, when I picked it, I've seen Spider-Man more than any other film in my lifetime, 142 times. Been counting since 2002. So every single one of these movies is a little part of me. And if you say anything bad about any of them, I will cry.
Oh, we'll get there.
No, all right, and I'm going to like kind of. All right, so I'm gonna just fully respect that because I can tell like there's a lot of heart in these movies. So I'm just gonna grade the ones that I truly love. Spider-Man 2, second best Spider-Man movie of all time. Last Crusade, you might get a lot of votes for that. I'm really excited to see how that one goes with Twitter. That might be like the number 1 movie that gets votes here. Star Trek's fantastic. Force Awakens is very meh. Spider-Man is outdated. But for your heart and putting all your like heart and soul into this, I give you 11 out of 10. You're up, Austin. They're awesome.
I have never seen any of those movies, so that puts me in a precarious position. I will say cannot rate.
Amanda did the same thing to me last time.
Jason, you're up.
Oh, I think there's some good picks. I'm not a fan of the Spider-Man franchise. I think the original was fun. The Last Crusade, I mean, Indiana Jones is awesome. Last Crusade had some really cool things going on with it. Star Trek was really good. I didn't like At World's End. I agree with the comment earlier. The first 2 Pirates of the Caribbean movies were really good, and then it dropped off significantly. So to me, this is like, a 6.
Nicole.
Okay, so Indiana Jones is one of like the best movies that you can rewatch like over and over again. So that was a really good pick. Star Trek is also really fun and enjoyable to watch. Pirates of the Caribbean is a lot of fun, but At World's End is one of my least favorite ones. And then Spider-Man is a good Marvel movie to watch all the time. So I'm going to go 8.
Ryan.
I think it's hard for me as someone in this draft because I'm very logical with a lot of my picks. I go do my tiers and I study and I don't try to go as emotional about movies that mean a lot to me, but I have a lot of respect for JR for going this route. I think Star Trek is an incredible movie with Eric Bana. I think that's a brilliant movie. I really did enjoy J.J. Abrams' adaptation of it. The rest, it's kind of hard for me. I wasn't a huge fan of Star Wars and the last 3 that they did. So overall, I'll go 7.
Gabe.
I mean, I hope you don't take it as this guy's crapping on everybody's list. But I really don't like this list at all. And I know what it means to you. And, whatever I said about it, won't change that. But it's just, if this were a draft of, favorite Comic-Con movie or favorite, genre, nerdy movie, like you've had a pretty solid list, except for Pirates of the Caribbean, which I'll get to. But it's you like, for one, I mean, the 2 Spider-Man movies, unfortunately, I don't think they hold up as well. I mean, to me, the first Spider-Man was really important when it came out, like 13, 12, something like that. When it came out, it was like amazing. And the second one is fine, but I don't feel like any of these represent like the action genre in a way that's meaningful, like, the way it is for this draft. And I think that's why this list doesn't work for me. Again, if you had like the fandom picks, like sure, you have pretty solid ones. But then Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, it's one of the most depressing movie-going experiences I've ever had. Like that movie doesn't make any sense. Nothing. It's nonsense for 2.5 hours. nothing. And then like just people changing allegiances. It just doesn't make any sense. It's a stupid movie. The action sequences are boring. Johnny Depp, like it's just no. Like he's not doing Jack Sparrow any justice. Like nobody's like knows what's going on. I hate that movie. And I could run more, but I'll spare you. So again, I mean, if because of what this draft should be, I'll give this no more than a 5.
Sean.
Wow.
This list gets me right in the feels. I was a big fan of the Raimi trilogy simply because we needed comic book movies at the time. And when that stuff came out, I was all over it. I think Spider-Man 2 is so great. Star Wars, the sequel trilogy, kind of disappointing. That bothered me, but I loved it. Star Trek, I think, is fantastic. I really love it. Outside of Harry Potter, no one can believe that I've never seen a single Pirates of the Caribbean, so that's incomplete for me. So the ones that I have seen, and Last Crusade, great. So I'll give this a strong 8 for me.
Larry.
Yeah, I really still love both of the Spider-Man films. I also think Star Trek is pretty great, as is The Last Crusade. And although the ending of the trilogy retroactively, I think, hurts the first two, I adored The Force Awakens, particularly when it was released. I just think it was great. And I agreed with what you said when you chose it. It definitely has some of the best action in all of Star Wars. So, yeah, I've only watched the first two Pirates movies because I didn't really like the first two when I watched them. I know, hot take. So I've never seen At World's End or any of the rest of them. So I do kind of agree. Action-y is but I'm gonna go 7.5 because I enjoy most of the films on here.
All right, let's roll
This
on.
is so much better than the horror draft one.
All right, let's go.
I think everyone gave me a 6.
That's pretty typical for me as well. Let's go on to Austin. Austin, tell us about your team, man.
So I do most of my movie watching. Number 1 when I was younger, and number 2 if I'm on a plane. So I kind of thought like through my life, like what are like the ones that I remember most that stand out the most to me. And I felt like these were all Hallmark movies of that I watched incessantly over and over again when I was younger, or that of all the plane rides I've had in my life, the ones that I remember most were on this list. So that's why I went with all these.
Yeah, Bad Boys 2 came out when I was in college. I remember I was on the baseball team at the time. It was probably the most rewatched movie at the time. Like everyone was saying Bad Boys 2 quotes. It was super, super immensely popular and trendy at the time. Dirty Harry is a classic. I don't know how many votes you're going to get from that. Die Hard 2 is terrific. Is that a reach in the third round? Maybe. Eraser was an interesting choice. I'm glad you chose it, but definitely off the board. Death Wish. The Perfect Storm is one of my low-key favorite movies. Quick nod to James Horner, who did the film score for that, I believe. It's terrific. So I will give this a 6.5. What about you, Jason?
Well, I take points off.
This is how it rolls, baby.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I like Dirty Harry. Like The Perfect Storm. I'm glad that was that held as an action movie. Bad Boys was fun. I think the original was better. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming Die Hard had already been taken when you took Die Hard 2.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll give it.
Well, that I just like.
I'll give it a. I'm not gonna weasel out and give it an incomplete because I'm not the type to do that. I'll give it a 6.5.
Nicole.
Yes. Okay. I've never seen Dirty Harry, and I don't think I haven't seen Eraser. But, yes. But I love Perfect Storm, and I love Bad Boys movies. and Death Wish is fantastic. So I think I'll go a 7.
Ryan.
There we go.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that this is the only Clint Eastwood movie that was selected in this entire draft.
Wow, is that true? No, Flags of Our Father. Oh, he directed that, right?
Clint Eastwood.
Okay, sorry,
Yeah.
people have never seen that. Okay, but in Clint Eastwood, obviously back, he was one of the biggest action, for his time. I think that's a solid second round pick. I think at the very end, he kind of trailed off with Eraser, Death Wish, and Perfect Storm. I thought there was maybe some better selections that could have been done, but that's the logical side of me. That's not the emotional side of me. So overall, I'll have to go 6.
I will say that, like, Austin was an Eagles offensive lineman at week 7 for this draft. He was a very late addition. So,
Yes, I respect that.
Gabe, go ahead.
This is gonna be
Sorry,
fun.
wasn't me. This is someone hit or miss for me because I think the first 3 are really solid picks. I haven't seen Death Wish, so I can't give an opinion on that one. The Perfect Storm is not only not an action movie; it's a terrible movie. It's just really, really boring, uneventful. It's based on a true story of some people that went missing, but then they make up this whole story in the boat, and it's just like no. But the fact that you had the balls to pick Eraser, some like underseen, extremely insane movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and if you haven't seen it, it's a movie where he fights a crocodile and gets run over.
I was about to say,
run over by a plane.
ever do luggage. It's so bad.
That movie's insane. So the fact that you picked that, I'll give you a 7.5.
Wow.
Yeah, I was
A 7.5.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a win right there.
Yes.
Bad Boys 2.
That is like an A++ from Gabe, by the way.
Yeah, kind of is. Bad Boys 2, love it. Dirty Harry, I'm with Dives on that. I don't think you're going to get a lot of votes, even though that is an excellent movie. Die Hard 2, I love it. It's not better than the first one. Shut up. Death Wish, another one I don't think you're going to get a lot of votes for, as I learned with the horror draft. People just don't care about the classics, but that is an excellent movie. Another Charles Bronson movie that's great is Death Hunt. That's really good. Eraser, I could watch that any day of the week.
And Death Wish too.
Yeah, that too. I love Eraser. The Perfect Storm. Yeah, your ass is showing. I hate that movie. I thought it was so bad. So I'll forget that part, and I'll just give you a grade on the others, and I'll give you a 7.5.
Larry.
Yeah, Bad Boys 2, I think it's the best of the franchise, but I don't really like any of the 3. Sorry. Dirty Harry, I've never seen, or Eraser, I've never seen. The Perfect Storm, I voted no as an action film. So that leaves me with Die Hard 2 and Death Wish. So I would give this a 6 out of 10.
All right.
Larry, I thought we were friends.
JR, what do you think?
I think Bad Boys 2 is okay. I'm not a big fan of Michael Bay. This is probably one of his better movies. But when I say one of his better movies, I mean whatever's not The Island, because The Island is the only movie of his I think is actually really good. Dirty Harry is a classic. I love it. Die Hard 2, the Die Hard sequels sort of blend in because I only saw each of them once, and the only sequel I remember was the last one, and I like it. But I remember liking Die Hard 2. Never seen Eraser. When you say Death Wish, which one are you talking about?
Any of them. They're all great movies.
Oh, the only one I saw was the one with Bruce Willis. I didn't like it. But I'm gonna stick up for The Perfect Storm. I think that movie's good. It's a little slow, but I like it. The James Horner score is really good. So I'm gonna give this list a 7 out of 10.
All right, Larry, tell us about your team.
So, as I said at the beginning, action is not like a top genre for me. So I just tried to assemble a team that I liked and a team, I guess, that had some sort of appeal. Mission Impossible Fallout, I think, is fantastic and has some of the best action in the entire Mission Impossible franchise, and honestly has some of the best action in at least the past decade or since the year 2000. It's really wonderful. I'd be remiss, obviously, wearing this shirt, drinking from my Wonder Woman little cup here, to not at least include a couple of comic book films. The Dark Knight, obviously, is a classic. As I said, I do think the action gets some criticisms, so it'll be interesting to see if, like, Nolan fans unite regardless and vote for for their fave. But I do think I do think X2 X-Men United does have some amazing action sequences. As I said, that opening alone with Nightcrawler going through the White House is just one of my favorite action moments of any comic book film ever. Plus, I just love the X-Men, so there's that. And then, as I had mentioned, the 80s are one of the best decades, probably, for straight-up iconic action films. So I knew I had to at least get one or two from that decade and was able to walk out with First Blood and RoboCop, maybe two of the more brutal of the action films, but two great ones. And I'm so sad. I thought maybe I live in a Twitter bubble. I thought more people had seen the Raid films because they are so good. Both of those first two are fantastic and provide some of the best action of our past decade as well. So I'm just hoping enough people voting on Twitter have seen the Raid, but I knew I definitely wanted it in my team.
Me too.
How would you grade it out of 10?
I would, I don't know, like an 8.
Okay. All right. My take, Mission Impossible Fallout was absolutely excellent. I mean, come on, Ethan Hunt versus Superman. It was like just so symbolic. Dark Knight is where this one begins and ends, I think, with your team. I'm really excited to see where the voting goes with this one. I never know. I never know how this goes, but like The Dark Knight is not a good action movie. The action sucks. It sucks. Even Batman, I'll say Batman Begins' action is way better. BVS's action is way better. Dark Knight, in terms of like action, is down on the totem pole. But this is The Dark Knight, and this is Heath Ledger. So I'm really excited to see how that one goes with the voting. First Blood's terrific. I've never seen the Raid or the Raid 2. X2 X-Men United. Anyone my age who grew up playing the X-Men video game, arcade game in like the early 90s knows they were just flipping out when they saw Nightcrawler just jump and jump and jump. Because that was one of the best characters in the arcade game. And when you saw it on the big screen, just completely mind-blowing. And then RoboCop. Like, who doesn't love Peter Weller's RoboCop? Like, it's just terrific. It was just so campy and fun. So I give this a solid 8.5 out of 10. But I think the how the polls go with The Dark Knight is the biggest thing here. That could be the one that makes you advance or not. I don't know. Nicole.
All right, so I think this is one of my favorite drafts here that you have. The Mission Impossible Fallout is one of my favorite Mission Impossible movies, and The Dark Knight is a classic. I've never seen The Raid and X2 X-Men United. I love the X-Men series, so that's one of my favorite ones as well. So, and I've never seen RoboCop, so I'm gonna go 8.
Ryan.
So going back to the horror draft, I had talked to Deibler after the draft, and I said that Larry crushed the top 2 picks with Halloween and Silence of the Lambs. And it really made me mad that Silence of the Lambs dropped that far. Larry, I think you did the same here. I don't think the people voting are going to look at The Dark Knight and be like, but is it really an action film? Is it really a lot of action? It's still going to be a classic to a lot of individuals out there. To round it up with First Blood and then The Raid, I was actually kind of upset because I deleted The Raid off of my list once Gabe picked The Raid. Instead, he picked The Raid 2, and I didn't realize that. So I made a lot of goofs today. But overall, Larry, this is a great list. I'm actually really jealous in a way of it. I think you're going to be a contender. I go 9.5.
Gabe.
This list is amazing. I'm echoing Ryan a bit. It's really reminiscent of how well you picked up the horror draft, because you picked really well here. Like, all these movies are great. I actually had The Dark Knight and X2 in my comic book movie draft, and I fought really hard, to defend them. I really like them. Mission Impossible Fallout is not my favorite, but it doesn't mean it's not the best or one of the best. I love it. It's just I like some others more, but doesn't mean I don't love it. And The Raid, it's just as good as The Raid 2. The Raid 2 is a bit of an expansion on the world. They get the car chase. They have a bit more. But The Raid is, with what they have, they do so well. And RoboCop, I probably would have picked RoboCop instead of Starship Troopers, but I stupidly thought it was for tomorrow's draft. But I think both of them are, like I said, a perfect double feature if you're looking for some sci-fi satires with great action and great characters. So, I mean, this is a 10 out of 10 for me.
Woo! Wow. Woo! There it is. My gosh, Gabe. A lot of positivity tonight.
Yeah, I know.
I just feel very flattered. He has been very kind to both of my lists because we've been on both of my my podcasts so far. So I'm very flattered.
All right, let's go to Sean.
I'm not feeling positive because every time Larry picks, it's an awesome list. So, boo. I love your list. Mission Impossible Fallout was great. When dude loads up his arms, you're like, yeah, that is just amazing. I'm partial to Rogue Nation just because when Rebecca Ferguson came in, it added a whole new layer and nuance to the Mission Impossible series. I love it. Dark Knight, I agree. I don't think the younger people out there are going to be voting for it going, yeah, I don't know if that's action or not. They're just going to say, Batman, click, click, click. So, First
Don't call me
Blood.
out like that, bro.
Yeah, First Blood is dope. I love it. The Raid, again, it's so underrated. Love that. X2, dig it. RoboCop, filmed right here in Dallas, Texas. It's excellent. So this is a strong 9 for me.
JR.
Okay, Larry. I feel like that we should just give it to you now because you picked the Dark Knight. That was a smart move, and I will be the first one to defend the action, the Dark Knight. Yeah, maybe the hand-to-hand stuff is a little but that scene with the truck and the Batmobile and the Batpod is one of the greatest comic book movie action sequences of all time.
Yeah, that thing.
I love Fallout. It's one of the best action movies of all time. My second favorite Mission Impossible movie under Ghost Protocol. Christopher McQuarrie is one of the greatest action directors of all time, no question. The First Blood is really great. I haven't finished The Raid, but I've liked what I've seen so far. Regardless of the director, I still think X2 X-Men United is one of the greatest comic book movies of all time. And RoboCop, I mean, you also win with that one. It's freaking RoboCop. So you get a 10 out of 10 for this one.
All right. The vibe is that this is one of the best teams. Jason.
Yeah, I think it checks a lot of boxes. I like looking at a genre from many different angles, and I think this list does that. It's really good. Great movies, great representations of different angles on the action genre. So this is a 9 for me.
9. All right, Ryan, explain your team, dude.
Okay, off the bat, I decided to go with a recent action film that is, I believe, is the highest grossing. Correct me if I'm wrong. Because it was such an accumulation over the years of watching our favorite comic heroes. And this is the end of it with the Russo brothers combining them all together flawlessly. It went well. It didn't seem, too congested. I thought Endgame, it was a a good first pick. Bloodsport is a classic action. I needed a little bit of kung fu in there, and I was very happy that dropped to the second round. Being denied Jurassic Park in the third, I'm happy I rebounded with Casino Royale because that is my favorite Bond with Mads Mikkelsen as the villain and the Aston Martin, which I hope to have one day. That's an incredible car. The Fugitive, I wanted a 90s classic. Harrison Ford, Dr. Richard Kimball. I mean, I really wanted that, so I'm glad that dropped. Fourth round, I can admit that it's probably one of my weaker picks, but I wanted war movie for a well-rounded list here, and Apocalypse Now is a classic movie. Ending it with Sicario, it's just brutal. It's action-packed. It's suspenseful. So overall, I'm a really huge fan of my list. I hope I don't go up against Larry in the first round, but we shall see.
All right. My quick take on your team. Endgame has hands down probably the best action moment of all time. Is that maybe that's a hot take? I'm not sure. But that's a moment that I can rewatch over and over and over again. The Avengers Assemble. We just did a bracket on that. It won the best MCU quote of all time. It's just a moment, like you said, Ryan, over 10 years of just accumulation and just pure nerdgasm. Bloodsport was maybe a bit of a reach. I'm going to be honest. I'm really happy you picked it, though. It is terrific. One of my like another movie that I'm just really happy that you took because I was probably going to take it like in rounds 5 or 6. Casino Royale is the best Bond movie. The Fugitive is terrific. Quick nod to Tommy Lee Jones, who's terrific in that movie. Apocalypse Now is great, but I don't know how many people are going to see that and vote for it. We'll see. And Sicario is awesome. I really enjoyed Sicario. Even the sequel is really, really good. I'll give you a solid 8. Nicole.
All right, so Endgame, I know that you were just talking about that you guys were just doing that. Endgame is great. Bloodsport is awesome. Casino Royale, I agree, is the best Bond. And the Fugitive and Sicario are awesome. Apocalypse Now, I'm not sure if people are going to understand that one and know that one really well. So I'm going to go 8.
All right, let's go to Gabe.
This is a pretty solid list, I think. You picked pretty wisely in the sense that you have different incarnations of the action genre. So you picked a comic book movie, you picked a fighting movie with one of the big, action icons, of the 80s and 90s. You pick a Bond movie, you pick The Fugitive, which is, if people haven't seen it, they should because it's really good. And I love how you said the name of the character before the movie, and I was still like, yes, right? That's a good one for a movie like that. Apocalypse Now I haven't seen, so I can't really talk about it. And I think Sicario, I didn't love it as much. I think it peaked after that scene in Ciudad Juarez, and then after that it was. I liked it, but it's not my favorite. But I think it's a pretty solid list. So I would give it an 8.5.
All right, Sean.
Endgame, I think you'll get a solid 12 out of 10 just because it's Endgame, and like Dive said, it's the nerdgasm to end all nerdgasms. Bloodsport, fun fact, I've met Frank Dukes. What an ass. Oh, wow. But that guy was awesome. He can actually do the stuff you've seen it. He was in a circle of 12 people blindfolded, knocked them all out cold in less than a minute. It was amazing. Casino Royale, that opening scene of parkour, that's something that's just, you can't plan that. That was amazing. I loved it. The Fugitive, I think, is a sleeper in this draft. It is such a great movie. Apocalypse Now, I think you'll get a lot of people to go, huh? But it is superb. Sicario is great too. This is a 9 for me.
Sean, quick note. I just remembered. You know what? I interviewed Edward Furlong and from Terminator 2.
Yeah.
And that guy was like depressed as fuck. It was
really?
like,
oh my God. I was there. It was terrible.
It was one of the most awkward interviews I've ever done in my life. Just
Really?
Yeah.
Just real sad, or was he just a douche?
I think it was a combination of both. To be honest, and he was like super high. So.
Wow.
He's had a really hard life, right? Like after Terminator.
Didn't he answer when you asked him how he was? He said I'm battling.
Yeah, he's like, I'm battling
depression
crippling
or something like that.
depression. Like I'm like a recovering
That is tough.
alcoholic, and I was like, what?
Recovering by taking up an OxyContin.
Yeah, it was wild. So let's go to Larry. How would you grade Ryan's squad?
So I haven't seen Bloodsport, but obviously I'm like sitting here wearing this shirt. So how could I not love Endgame being the first pick off the board for his round one? But Casino Royale is great. The Fugitive is great. The last two are a little bit slow and drama filled, very tense, but a little bit slow for action overall for me. But I think just as films, both Apocalypse Now and Sicario are amazing. So just from what I've seen on this list, I like every movie here. So I would probably go with like an 8.5.
JR.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Endgame is amazing. The Russo brothers are, in my opinion, I'll say the third best blockbuster directors in the business, maybe fourth. I love them, and Endgame is one of their best. Haven't seen Bloodsport. Love Casino Royale, second favorite Bond movie. Love The Fugitive. Love Apocalypse Now, and I love Sicario. So this is a 10 out of 10 list.
Woo! Love it. And then we got Jason. Did you grade this squad yet?
No, I love it. I think, again, it's another one that checks a lot of boxes, looks at the genre from many different angles. I think Casino Royale is the best Bond film, in my opinion. This is a really good list. I'll give it an 8.5.
All right. And then we have the final two teams here. Hold on. There we go. You see it? No.
Oh.
What happened here?
That's weird.
There you go.
Can you see it?
Yep.
All right. We're back. All right. So Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, like nothing beats the scale and just heartwarming joy and fantasy feeling of the Fellowship of the Ring. It's just this is a list very similar to JR's squad that speaks to me personally and emotionally. These are all movies that just was like the second I left the theater, I was like, yes, because we got Fellowship of the Ring. John Wick started it all. Keanu Reeves, the slow build up and that scene where he's like becomes like a ninja, stealthy, and just goes through the sauna and then into the club and then falls down. Like it's just terrific. John Wick is hands down one of the, and it's got Keanu, so that might get some votes. Predator is just terrific. It's one of my favorite aliens of all time. It's got Arnold. It's got just so much like masculinity and like a soundtrack that's like like it's just like a stone cold brass knuckles action movie to me. When I think of action, I think of Predator. Independence Day is a really fun movie. I think that's kind of my similar to Star Wars: A New Hope. That I think people are just going to see it and vote for it. And then Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers. I mean, The Last March of the Ants, The Battle for Helm's Deep, Gandalf's Return. There were so many moments in The Two Towers that is just so memorable. Rohan, the King coming back. It's just an epic film that I think actually aged well over time. And as great as Fellowship is and as great as Return of the King is, like Two Towers was like my third favorite, but it just got better and better and better over time. And these are I'm a film score nerd, and I had to take it because the Lord of the Rings Howard Shore film score is by far one of my favorite all time. Nicole, You're up next. Can you attest that I listen to this all the time?
He really does. Every time I walk down the stairs in the morning, he's listening to it. Okay, so the Lord of the Rings Fellowship is the greatest Lord of the Rings movie, and yes, he does listen to the soundtrack all the time. I agree that I think I like John Wick better than The Matrix, and The Predator is fantastic. Independence Day, I think that was kind of a reach, but it's still a good movie. And The Two Towers is also as good as Fellowship of the Ring. So I am going to go in 8.
Ryan.
I think your draft comes down to whether people like Lord of the Rings. I am a huge fan, so I think from my opinion to you, I think this is a extremely good list. I do think John Wick 2 is better than John Wick 1. Predator in the third round is a great snag. Independence Day, you got a lot of action there, so that's more of your maybe fun action movie. A New Hope and then Two Towers, I think it's just going to compare with, like I said, people who just love that genre. So I'll go a solid 8.
Gabe.
I love every single one of these movies. And I think, most people do. That's why they're all classics. Maybe John Wick is not a classic yet, but it's probably on its way to be one, of becoming one. However, I think in an action movie draft, picking 3 fantasy movies, 2 of which are in the same franchise, I'm not a fan of that, even though I love them. So I think, within the confines of how we're thinking of action right now, they qualify. But even if you were thinking like Star Wars is action as such, I think there are better action movies, like as an action movie, there are better installments in that franchise. So, I'll give it a 8.5, but I'm not happy about it.
All right, Sean.
Not happy about it. That's funny. I agree with Ryan. If somebody sees your list and they go, "Oh, I love Lord of the Rings," I think you'll get A's across the board. If they don't dig it, you might not. But I agree with everything you said about it, specifically about Helm's Deep. Aside from Battle of the Bastards, that's one of the most fantastic battle scenes I've ever seen. And I'm like you, I'm a huge score nerd too, so I'm always on that. Independence Day is just feel good stuff. I love that movie. Predator. Okay, see, this is what sucks because you put The Predator on list A, so I thought that's what you were going to pick, and this was my sleeper pick. So, that. John Wick. I think you said this, Mrs. Crockpot, or somebody did, that you like the John Wick trilogy over the Matrix trilogy. I agree. The John Wick trilogy is fantastic. The Matrix trilogy sucks after like halfway through the second one. But John Wick, John Wick is great. And by the way, that's real. Keanu Reeves really does know martial arts. He's a Tai Chi expert, so that's great. I love this list. 8.5.
All right, Larry.
Yeah, I'm in a like weird middle ground too. I was real conflicted with Lord of the Rings overall, but of course I love them, and they do certainly have some epic action moments throughout. John Wick, amazing, and as you were talking, if we're talking trilogies, it blows the Matrix trilogy out of the water for the full trilogy, but the first one is great. Predator, also fantastic. Independence Day is fun, is cheesy, it's big, but it's certainly like a quintessential 90s action film. So there you go, and I guess it'll just determine if people actually like it or they hate it, because I think people fall either way. And then Star Wars A New Hope, I guess, again, I don't know how much I think about the action when I think of Star Wars, so I'm going to go with an 8 because I love the films.
JR.
Like Dodge and Sean said, I'm also a huge score junkie, and I will say some of these are among some of the greatest film scores of all time. Specifically, the penultimate choice, which I consider to be the greatest film score of all time, A New Hope. But scores aside, this is another 10 out of 10 list because all these movies are just so freaking good. The Fellowship of the Ring, my favorite film from 2001. John Wick, one of the greatest action movies ever made. Predator, won't be my first choice with Schwarzenegger, but it's still great. Independence Day is probably my second favorite blockbuster from the 90s after Jurassic Park. I love A New Hope is my favorite film of the 70s, and I love The Two Towers. So this is a perfect list. Perfect list.
Jason.
The only knock I'll give is 2 Lord of the Rings movies on one list. I think is just takes away from some of the diversity. So I would give this an 8. I think you have a lot of real, let's say 8.5. You have a lot of really, really strong movies. Just it's the 2 Lord of the Rings on one list.
All right, Nicole, what do you think of your team?
Okay, so I know that my list isn't very diversified, but like I said earlier, the war side of the action movies is my favorite type of action movies to watch. I'm a very much big into like history and war, so that's why I picked all of these. Braveheart is the first war action movie that I ever saw, so that's why I went for that one, number 1. And I'm really excited about 1917. I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to pick that one. I was worried that someone was going to pick it before me, so I'm happy that I got that one. And Flags of Our Fathers is a fun story for me. I used to work in a retirement home, and I worked with a resident in the unit that I worked with. And the one gentleman that I worked with, he was one of the guys that was in the picture of the Iwo Jima picture in the Flags of Our Fathers. So that's one of the reasons why I picked that one. And also just the story of Iwo Jima is fantastic. And Black Hawk Down is great. And The Last Samurai is one of my favorite ones with the Japanese samurai swords. Is fantastic. So I'm going to go 8.5 for my score.
You know exactly where I'm going to go. First up, I can't believe you actually nailed the all-war team.
Yeah.
That was really, really cool. I knew Nicole was trying to like get an all-war 6-team squad, and it happened. I'm really impressed. My second take here is that Braveheart, The Last Samurai, and Black Hawk Down have probably 3 of the best film scores among this entire draft. Just banger film scores. Dunkirk is awesome. Just some of the best like photography and cinematography of any Christopher Nolan movie. And I've actually shamefully never seen Flags of Our Fathers. So I give you this a 9,000 out of 10. What about you, Austin?
Nicole hit me in my soft spot. Black Hawk Down is one of, I think, the 3 best movies I've ever seen. That alone, I think, is worthy of a 9.
All right, Ryan.
Thank you.
Just coming back from being deployed overseas, I decided when I was over there to watch as many war movies as possible. And Nicole, I understand with you being saying you're not diverse. Braveheart is a great first choice. I mean, it's definitely on my list. I kind of look at, after watching 1917, I look at it more as in all of the cinematography behind it. So I think that kind of dampens the action for me a little bit. But I thought you ended it really strong with The Last Samurai and Black Hawk Down. They're both 2 just incredible movies. So I would probably go 7.5.
Gabe.
This is another list that I don't love. I like the theme that it's all war movies, epic, big war movies. But besides 1917 and especially The Last Samurai, which I stupidly did not think of because I love that movie. It's truly the definition of what epic filmmaking should be. I think it just works so well. You have the big star and, Stranger in a Strange Land vibe. And it's I love that movie. I can't say enough good things about it. But other than that, I mean, Braveheart. I mean, it's a good pick, but I just don't think it holds up very well. I think it struggles a bit with tone. It's sometimes like somewhat comedic, and it looks weird. And then the costume design is horrible. Like it looks like they're dressed. It's like costume design from Star Trek, the TV series from the '60s. Especially like the guy with the stuff on his, the deformed king. So that I don't think it holds up. Dunkirk, I just didn't like it at all. Flags of Our Fathers is one of the most boring films I've ever seen. I really did not like it, and it doesn't focus very well. Like it goes all over the place, which we always said about the same with Iwo Jima people. But then it shifts the narrative to the son of one of them, I think, who wrote the book, and it's just like a bit messy. So I don't really love it. Black Hawk Down is good. It's not my favorite, but it's pretty good. So I mean, it's not my favorite list, so I'll give it a 6.5.
Larry.
Yeah, I think I might be on the opposite end when it comes to Nicole's favorite part of the action genre. War movies, they usually don't hit with me very much. In saying that, 1917 was actually my second favorite film of 2019. So I did absolutely love that and feel it's pretty action-packed and relentless throughout its runtime. So a fantastic pick. The Last Samurai is also fantastic. Black Hawk Down, I think, is fun. It's a little bit more of a guilty pleasure for me, I feel like. Dunkirk, I mean, it is action from start to finish. I'm just not the biggest fan of it. Flags of Our Fathers is solid, as is Braveheart. So overall, I think this is, if we're going to compile a war-centered list, I think this is about as good as you get with one, especially in the action genre. So I'm going to give this a 7.
All right, JR.
I'm giving it a 10. All these movies are fantastic, especially Dunkirk in 1917. I have spoken.
All right, Quill. All right, Jason, you're up.
So Braveheart, I think, was a really good choice. I agree with JR about the war movies. I think that there are some really good ones, but I can only watch so much of it. I think Dunkirk for me was really ponderous. I didn't love it. I just didn't. So yeah, this is a 6 for me.
All right. I think that wraps it up. We're over an hour in, so make sure you lock it down to Movies Matrix on Twitter at Movies Matrix, and check out night 2 of the Movies Matrix action movie draft happening tomorrow night, Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time. For everyone here, thanks for watching, guys.